Hello. So a few episodes ago, started a series which I'm not going to be doing one right after the other on interstellar travel, and just looking at that, science fiction and how reality is, all that. So today, going to talk about the next most likely way to do this, which is going to be cryonics. So cryogenics is basically just about anything low temperature. Um, Cryonics is specifically, it's a subset of cryogenics. It is specifically trying to preserve life through low temperature freezing. That said, there currently, cryonics, it is illegal to perform cryonics on a living person. So there are people who have been cryonically frozen or had parts of them, their heads cryonically frozen in some cases. They had to, by law, be declared legally dead. So, cryonics as we know it today is specifically holding off. It's not just hoping for a cure for your disease, it's actually hoping for a way to bring you back to life because you have been declared legally dead. Um, that said, how would this apply to. So, again, space travel. Obviously, we don't want to send legally dead people out in space, um, unless we're just trying to get rid of the bodies, which you know, sort of gets the point of the whole video here. So, for interstellar travel purposes, how would cryonics work? Um, and before we go into that, let's just say I looked a little into suspended animation in general, just for we don't. Why do we have to freeze people to send them out in space? Why can't we find another way? And for science fiction purposes, excellent, great. For reality purposes, everything we do or everything we have done that involves suspended animation has been dealing primarily with lowering the body temperature. So modern day suspended animation studies have all been basically cryonics or something similar to cryonics. Um, so, again, is it possible to find another way for suspended animation? Maybe. I've not found any good suggestions about how that would be done other than, you know, cryonics. So, not going to go down that road simply because I have no clue how to go down that road, and neither does the rest of science. Um, so that said, there have been some experiments. We have actually been able to freeze worms and bring them back. In nature, we have had there are some fish which have been known to survive being frozen. Um, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if we've done any experiments to see if we could freeze fish or not, but there have been some fish which they freeze over the winter time and survive thawing out. Um, these are, of course, cold-blooded animals to begin with, or I guess I don't know if you can say that in the case of the worms or not, but fish are generally cold-blooded, so trying to do this with mammals and humans and other things might not translate over as well as one would hope. So it may be possible to do a human, but with what we've done so far in the past, we shouldn't be getting our hopes up too high. Okay, NASA has done some experiments where lowering a person's body temperature to around 32 to 34 degrees Fahrenheit, close to freezing, they have been able to put someone in hibernation for about 2 weeks. So that's been some NASA experiments. So again, that's more of a suspended animation than a cryonics experiment, but we've been able to do it. Takes longer than 2 weeks to get to the next star, so I'm not gonna, they know they decided not to try it with any longer period of time than that. So it may be possible. It's extremely questionable. Um, Not getting my hopes up too high, waiting for that one to happen. Uh, so, how do we do this? Still, modern day cryonics. You've been declared dead. You've gotten your name on a list, basically by paying a lot of money because cryonics, from what I've seen, it costs around $20,000 if you just want your head frozen. Um, and up to around 300,000 if you want your entire body frozen. So yeah, it's expensive. So you've got basically an emergency. Your name is on the list. The emergency cryonics team is ready for you to die. We basically either someone is standing by ready, or they've got a phone number to the hospital or something. Something's going on. They get your body after you've been declared dead. They pump you full of a anti-cryogenic material. Basically, body is largely water. When water freezes, bad stuff happens. We wrap our food in the freezer. We try to get it secure because if we leave it in the freezer too long and it's exposed, it goes bad. Freezer burn and all that. And it's not something we want happening to our bodies, especially if we're hoping that they'll be restored sometime in the future. So the body's pumped. Glycerol is the one that they commonly use. There are others which are more toxic. Technically, glycerol is considered non-toxic, but considering you're replacing a percentage of your water with glycerol, you eventually are going to want it out and have that water replaced. But it's not toxic in low quantities, let's say. But like I said, not something you want just hanging around either. It's a chemical which isn't natural in the body, and so given enough time, something could go wrong with it. That's just that's the way poisons work. Some poisons are very slow working. Glycerol, again, not considered toxic, but if you leave it in the body for too long, who knows what's going to happen. Then they pumped you full of glycerol so that when your body temperature is lowered, it doesn't all go to ice, and you don't just have all your cells start splitting open because of the ice. They lower your temperature slowly until it gets to a point where they can put you in liquid nitrogen, and that's then you're preserved in the liquid nitrogen. Now, this said, the people who have been cryonically preserved, they were declared legally dead. They're hoping for a cure. No cure has come about yet, and so therefore, we haven't tried to thaw any of them out. The companies that do this, they've got a contract, and part of the contract says we are not going to thaw you out until a cure's come about. So, can we actually thaw them out is a big question. Mentioned liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen, most of us, if you've survived high school chemistry or high school physics, or just about any high school class, science class, you have either seen in real life or seen a video of someone dipping a tennis ball in liquid nitrogen and shattering it. So, while yes, a person can survive being frozen in liquid nitrogen and thawed out again, well, a body can, the person, is dead. The idea that, your body's got to be stored very well, or else, there's a chance it could just shatter. That's just, that's what liquid nitrogen can do to you. So, one good earthquake could destroy an entire facility full of cryonically preserved bodies. We hope that doesn't happen, but that's what we're going. That's a possibility we have to consider. Um, so anyway, that's the way they do it now. For space travel, how are we going to go about this? So, well, before we get into space travel, how are we going to thaw the person out? Like I said, you're pumped full of glycerol or glycerin. Uh, so we want to get that out eventually because even though it's not toxic, your body still wants water instead of glycerin in it. So makes perfect sense that we would want to somehow get that pumped out. The process for doing that, from every video I could see, we don't really have a process for doing it. Again, we've never really done this with people. You know, we've frozen them. We've never tried to thaw them out. Simpler, worms and fish, it's been done, but we've never, the process of how it's been done, we've never really looked at as closely as, you know, as I would want done before I went through this process, which I have no plans on going through this process. Um, so when we do get you thawed out, we have to find a way to replace the glycerin without doing more damage to your body or doing any damage to your body. We also have to thaw you out. So mammoths, they've been flash frozen, according to history, or they've been found flash frozen. Some of them have been found with vegetable matter in their mouth, so it's possible to flash freeze larger animals without destroying the cellular structure too much, sort of. At the time, like I said, this was back, I believe, the 20s when they found these mammoths, and so studying them wasn't as technical as it would be now. So the thawing out process, and did the thawing out do any damage to them and stuff like that? It's questionable. We didn't study them back then as we would today. So one would assume, thawing stuff out, stuff can go wrong as much as freezing it. Bigger problem here is, like I said, freezing things, you can do damage to the cells. So thawing out, we're basically reverse freezing. So even if we found the perfect temperature for preserving cells without destroying them, and the perfect means for getting them there, we now have to reverse the process. And reversing the process, easiest way is to add heat, of course. Now that we're adding heat can also destroy cells. So we've got to, when we reverse the process, we have to do it just right, or else we're going to undo everything we did when we froze the, body. So let's assume we figured out how to do this as well. So we figured out how to freeze a body. We figured out how to thaw it out. We get people on spaceships. Okay. First off, the last person to be frozen has to be frozen. What do I mean by that? I mean, currently our current cryonic procedures requires someone else to do the process for you. I'm unconscious. I am, dead or unconscious or whatever. I'm not putting the tubes in myself. Even if I'm conscious, I can't really perform the procedure on myself. It's dangerous. So somebody has to, current technology, someone has to be alive to do it, and then that person has no one to do it to them. Can the system be automated in the future? Maybe. I will talk about that in a few minutes. Then we get the problem, like I said, it's still a long distance to the nearest star. So the reason we're doing cryogenics is we can't move at super fast speeds. So every so often, once a year, maybe, we want to thaw people out so they can do routine maintenance of the ship. So it's not enough that we found a way to freeze someone and thaw them out. We have to be able to do it to them multiple times just so that they can maintain the ship. Again, can we get robots to maintain the ship? Maybe, but then we've also got emergency situations here. What if we fly into an uncharted meteor storm or something? Will the robots be able to handle this, or do we want people to be conscious and handling it themselves? Um, so we're going to want a way to freeze and unfreeze the people multiple times in some cases. Um, Supposing we are able to do this safely, then yeah, maybe we can get people to another planet, another star system by freezing them. But that technology is way, way, way away. You know, again, if we can trust artificial intelligence and robots enough to handle the ship while we're on our way, we would be one step closer. Just looking, especially considering the reason we're doing routine maintenance on the ship is because it gets old, machines get old, then our robots are also going to get old. They're going to need routine maintenance as well. So we're starting down the road of at what point do we trust machines, and at what point do we just decide we should wake the humans up from time to time and have them do this. Now the other, I got to think, is there another way we could do this? Relativity. We have the twin paradox. Basically, move close enough to the speed of light, time starts to slow down for you. So the twin paradox is we take two twins, we ship one of them off on a rocket ship near the speed of light. He comes back a few days, few months later, whenever, and he's only aged a few days, and his twin brother has aged 100 years. It's called the twin paradox. So if there was some way that we could somehow get the bodies in suspended animation moving close to the speed of light, while the rest of the ship or the rest of the universe is going along at normal speed, relative to each other, then we could send someone off on a long distance and have them wake up only a few days later from their point of view when they reach, while, the trip itself actually took hundreds of years. Problem with that is the person's in their suspended animation chamber. For them to move at the speed of light while the rest of the rocket ship moves at a much lesser speed, we've got to, spin them in a circle or something like that. As I tried to figure out how this would work, it just sort of turned into a big comic routine in my mind of all the things that could go wrong with this. So, relativity, trying to age people slower than the rest of the universe through relativity as we ship them. If you can do that with the entire ship, which would be another topic altogether, another video altogether, that would be one way to go, although we don't have the technology to do that again. We're nowhere near the technology to do that. But the idea, we can use it as a suspended animation, which no one suggested this again. This is something I came up with on my own, trying to figure out how else could we do suspended animation without freezing people. And this is the best I came up with. And like I said, it's such a ridiculous proposition that I don't think it's going to happen. So, there we have, our second in the series of interstellar travel. Again, with our current technology, it's very unlikely to happen. Maybe in the future. We still have a lot of bugs to work out if we're going to try it in the future. But until then, stay chill.